Hello students. In this video I'll begin with the explanation of the poem The Soldier by Rupert Brooke. First I'll read out the text to you, and the poem is in the form of Petrarchan sonnet divided into octave and sestet. The first part has 8 lines and the second part has 6 lines. Now I'll first read out the text of the poem and then I'll explain it to you. If I should die, think only this of me, that there's some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. There shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed, a dust whom England bore, shaped, made aware, gave once her flowers to love, her ways to roam, a body of England's breathing English air, washed by rivers, blessed by sons of home. So this is the octave of the poem. If I should die, think only this of me. So here Brooke considers himself to be in the guise of a soldier, an English soldier, and he says that if I die during a war, then I request all the Englishmen to think only one thing about me, that there is some corner of a foreign field that is forever England. It means that wherever he will be buried in the foreign field where the war would take place, and while partaking in the war he would die or sacrifice his life for his country England, and if he is buried in that foreign field, then he requests the English people to remember only one thing about him, that wherever he is buried in the foreign field, that particular corner of that foreign land should always be considered as England. Then he says, there shall be in that rich earth a richer dust concealed. Richer dust means the body of a soldier. Concealed means hidden. So he says that no doubt that the dust, that earth of the foreign land he considered to be a rich land. But he says that if he is buried as a soldier in that particular piece of land, then always consider that there is a richer dust. It means a very pure soul, a pure body has been buried in that particular piece of land. It is hidden underneath that piece of land. A dust whom England bore, a body, an individual who was nurtured by England. He was shaped and made aware. He was shaped, he was given shape, and he was enlightened by England. England that once gave her flowers to be loved. England offered her flowers. England has been personified here, and he says that England with open arms offered her natural beauty to be relished and enjoyed by Brooke. England also gave her ways to roam. It freely offered her paths, her ways where he could wander freely. A body of England's breathing English air, a body of England's, a body completely devoted to England, a body given birth by England, a body which was solely meant for England. Breathing English air, living in the English air, breathing the English air. A body washed by rivers, cleansed by the rivers of England, blessed by sons of home. Home means England. Blessed means blessed. So a body of England, for England, a body that breathed, that lived in the English air, a body that was cleansed, that was washed by the rivers of England, a body that was blessed by the sons of England, by the English sun. So in the octave, what the poet conveys to us is that if during a war he dies in some foreign land and if his body is buried in that particular foreign land, then that particular piece of land where his body will be buried, it should be considered as England forever by the English people. And they should believe that a richer dust is hidden under the earth in that particular piece of land where his body will be buried. His body is the one which was nurtured by England, which was given shape by England, which was enlightened by England. His is the body to whom England gave her flowers and her ways to roam, her flowers to enjoy the beauty of nature. And it also offered England also offered her ways, her paths where the poet could roam freely. His was the body which completely belonged to England. He was breathing in the English air, living in the English air. His body was washed and cleansed by the rivers of England. He was blessed by the English sun. So after the octave, we'll move on to the sestet of the poet. And think, this heart, all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less, gives somewhere back the thoughts by England given, her sights and sounds, dreams happy as her day, and laughter learnt of friends, and gentleness in hearts at peace under an English heaven. Now, in the first part, that is the octave, the poet talks about what all England has given to him. In the sestet, the poet talks about what all he will give back to England in return. So he says, and think, this heart all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind. He says that he requests the English people, or he expects the English people, the Englishmen, to think that his heart was a pure heart, because before death he had shed away all the evil, and he had now become a pulse in the eternal mind, in the consciousness of the people. He had become like an eternal beat, like a pulse, and no less gives somewhere back the thought by England given. And being a pulse, being a beat, being present in the consciousness of the people and the eternal mind, he resolves to give back the thoughts given to him by England. He will also give back her sights and sounds, the views, the visuals, the beauties offered by England, and the sounds which he enjoyed while living in England. He will give back those sights and sounds given to him by England after death, when he will become a pulse in the eternal mind. Dreams happy as her day. He will also return back the happy dreams, the dreams which are as happy as the daytime of England. And laughter learnt of friends. He will also give back the smiles, the laughter which he had learnt in the accompaniment of in the company of his friends. And gentleness. He will also give back the gentleness in hearts at peace, the gentleness which is a virtue, which is a part and an integral part of the hearts of the people, which lives in peace under an English heaven. So people are destined to live a peaceful life under the peaceful heaven of England. So the poet resolves, and he promises the people that if he dies the death of a soldier and is buried in a foreign land, he expects the people to think that a person with a pure soul and heart have been buried in that foreign land. His was a pure heart because he had shed away all the evil, and after death he would become a pulse in the eternal mind, and in that form he will give back all the thoughts given to him by England. He will return the sights and the sounds, the English dreams, the laughter which he learned in the company of his friends, the gentleness which is present in the hearts of the people who live in peace under the English heaven. So, this is all for the explanation of the poem Soldier. Now, I'll once again summarize the entire poem, and after the summary, I'll give you some points based on the critical appreciation of the poem. The poet says that if I die in the war, I want to be remembered in a particular way. He says that think of how the far off land on which he would die will have a small piece of England forever where he will be buried. That earth will be enriched by his dead body because his body is made from the dust of England. England created him and gave him consciousness. England gave him her blooming plants to fall in love with and gave him the sense of freedom. His body belongs completely to England and has always breathed in the English air. England's rivers cleansed him, and he was blessed by England's sun. He also says that consider the way in which his soul, through death, will be made pure, and his consciousness will return to the immortal consciousness like a beating pulse, and will return back the beautiful thoughts that England gave to him. He'll return the sights and sounds of his native country, to the beautiful dreams that were as happy as England's daytime, and the laughter shared with English friends. And he'll return England's gentleness, which lives in the English minds that are at peace under the English sky, the English heaven, where he will go, or he will rest in peace too after his death as a soldier. This was the summary of the poem, The Soldier. Now, coming to the critical analysis of the poem. We all know by now that The Soldier was the last of the 5 poems of Brooke's war sonnets, which he had written during the start of the World War I. As Brooke reached the end of his series, he turned to what happened when the soldier died while abroad in the middle of the war. When The Soldier was written, the bodies of servicemen were not regularly brought back to their homeland, but buried nearby where they had died. In World War I, this produced vast graveyards of British soldiers in foreign fields, and this gave Brooke an opportunity to portray these graves as representing a piece of the world that will be forever England. Writing at the start of the war, Brooke prefigured the vast numbers of soldiers whose bodies, torn to shreds or buried by shell fire, would remain buried and unknown as a result of the methods of fighting that war. For a nation desperate to turn the senseless loss of its soldiers into something that could be coped with, even celebrated, Brooke's poem became a cornerstone of the remembrance process and is still in heavy use today. It has been accused, not without merit, of idealizing and romanticizing war, and stands in stark contrast to the poetry of Wilfred Owen. Religion is central to the second half of The Soldier, expressing the idea that the soldier will awake in a heaven as a redeeming feature for his death in war. The poem also makes great use of patriotic language. It is not any dead soldier, but an English one. It was written at a time when to be English was considered as the greatest thing to be, at least by the Englishmen. The soldier in the poem is considering his own death, but is neither horrified nor regretful. Rather, religion, patriotism, and romanticism are central to distracting him. Some people regard Brooke's poem as among the last great ideals before the true horror of modern mechanized warfare was made clear to the world. But Brooke had seen action and knew well of a history where soldiers had been dying on English adventures in foreign countries for centuries and still wrote it. So, in a nutshell, we can say that this poem, Soldier, is a war poem. It is based on the Petrarchan model of sonnet, divided into two parts, octave and sestate, with the rhyme scheme A B A B C D C D E F G E F G. And in the poem, the poet ties his entire physical and mental being to England, making the two inseparable even in death. The theme of patriotism and the feeling of patriotism runs throughout the poem. The poet, through this poem, glorifies England. That's all for the explanation, summary, and critical appreciation of the poem, The Soldier. I'll be sharing notes with you on this poem, The Soldier, where you can find some additional points which you can include in the critical appreciation of the poem. Thank you.